Alright, time for another draftphysics.com. Debatephysics.com. Draft physics, I said that? Debatephysics.com. Video presentation to, no, it doesn't matter, nobody. Nobody that matters, sadly. Conversation just can't get anywhere. So I had a dream last night that was kind of bizarre. And so it was in a neighbor's house that I used to have as a neighbor. And he always had technology. So he had some technology thing he was showing me or something. And there was this video playing on his widescreen TV of, science videos, but they were all like morons doing the videos. And so there was like these two guys in their underwear doing some stupid physics video in the video. And then all of a sudden it was in the room, and all of a sudden there was a box and Neil deGrasse Tyson popped out. And I said, how'd they get Neil deGrasse Tyson in this stupid video? And it's like not a video, but it's happening in the room, which was funny. And so while he was here, I said, oh, geez, it's Neil deGrasse Tyson. Maybe I can, throw a couple questions at him. So I did, but sadly I woke up without any answers. So I threw the gravity question at him. Does gravity create heat? And I was just dying for the answer. But their answer is always something stupid like, well, there's the radioactive elements in the earth are somehow, doing a China syndrome thing and are somehow creating all the heat that melts 80% of the earth. So 80% of the earth's mass is melted. And it's because it's radioactive. And you're saying, well, why isn't there any evidence of it being radioactive? Like we should all be irradiated by all of this irradiation that's in the molten metals. So it all was just, you're just like, oh, this is such a pile of crap. When they know, that gravity is causing the pressure, it's just constant pressure all towards the center of the earth. They know pressure creates heat. And, it's just so obvious that gravity is heating the earth. And the heat isn't just staying there. It has to dissipate out. And so there has to be a constant fueling of the heat by gravity. And I'm just amazed that, it hasn't occurred to a single other person to talk about heat in connection to gravity. And the fact that it has to make big things hot. It really doesn't have a choice. So show me the planetoid, okay, the big object, something more than a few miles in diameter that isn't at least warm in the center. Yeah, but they'll never find such an object. The trick is it's really hard to measure the temperature of a planet, but anyway. It's hard for us to measure the temperature of anything in the sense that we can't measure all of any form of radiation. It's all difficult to measure. So I'm not sure about a photomultiplier, whether it can multiply radio signals, So there's lots of different kinds of radiation at different frequencies, and so we don't have the capacity to. I mean, frankly, if we could just hold it up and, gravity itself would be measurable. But anyway, so just throwing it in because this is, it's a one comment, stupid moron video. And so I'll throw some extra shit in. But this is just ridiculous to have to re-argue this crap over and over. So this idiot quotes me as saying, force is just another word for momentum. No, I'm saying it's just an absolute fact. You won't be able to show me any experimental evidence that force doesn't cause directly momentum. That I increase the force by 2, I increase the momentum by 2. I increase the force by 3, I increase the momentum by 3. Perfect proportional relationship indicating a perfect symbiosis, okay, between force and the event of something having momentum. The application of a force, the absorption of a force. If something absorbs a force, it will be affected, okay. As Newton pointed out, okay. Newton didn't say that. Yes, he did. Okay. Newton said that change in motion is proportional. Yes, in a sense, proportional doesn't, you might as well just say equal, because it's equal. The only part that makes it proportional is how much the force is missing the object. That is, if there's some imprecision in how you're getting the force into the object. So that's why there's a proportionality, is just because there's a certain amount of waste. But if you could put the force, all of the force, into an object, it will always be a perfect relationship between the amount of force and the amount of momentum increased or decreased. Obviously, you can decelerate something with a force. Obviously, it's always going to be a relative for us because we can't know exactly what's moving in absolute space. Who's standing still and who's moving is hard to discern in as a practical fact. All right, to the force applied, but I'm arguing just like Newton that there is absolute space and there are absolute positions in space and things have absolute motion, just a fact. Proportional to the force applied. Okay, so Newton said that change in motion is proportional to the force applied. Yes, exactly. He made it clear. Twice the force, twice the velocity. 3 times the force, 3 times the velocity. You can't make it any clearer than that. Clearly, force equals a change in your momentum, period. That's what he said formulatically. F equals the change in your momentum over the change in time. That is, if you want the rate of the applied force, if it's a constant force. And if it's not, you just want the net force, well, then you just cross out the T and there's clear F equals the change in your momentum. He said that force generates motion, so they cannot be the same thing. So it doesn't make any sense. It exchanges. Yes, it generates it by losing it. So again, you're saying Newton didn't understand a Newton's cradle? Of course, it generates the motion by giving it the motion. It gives them the force. The force is exchanged between one object and another object. Its condition is exchanged. So whoever has the actual force doesn't really matter. The fact is that the end result will be a change in your circumstance that's completely dependent on the difference you went in with. So the difference in your momentum will be the force exchanged. So they cannot be the same thing. So that's just bullshit. A thing cannot generate itself. So there's no argument that anything generates itself. Clearly the argument is that the energy is like a fluid or a substance, and that things possess the substance. The heat, the calorie, lots of things they talked about, caloric. They talked about this being a substance, this force, and that things possess it. So it's not hardly a stretch in terms of understanding their understanding. I think even Maxwell would have agreed with that kind of notion of how the force works. All right, the net force will be applied over a shorter period of time. So what? That's me again. And again, it doesn't matter, okay? You can't talk about a net force and then talk about a period of time. It just doesn't make any sense. So that doesn't mean anything. And the fact is the force is just the applied amount of difference, and that's all you can do. And you can either exchange it quickly or you can exchange it over a long period of time, and it doesn't change how much energy or force something has. So somebody throws an egg and you just hold your hand out and let the egg break. Okay, well, you've attempted to exchange the force. It hasn't exchanged, okay, so the egg broke. And the fact is, though, you can catch the egg, so you can decelerate the egg gracefully so the shell doesn't break. It's the same energy that hit your hand, all right, and all you're doing is changing how much time it takes to convert the energy from the egg into your muscles that are controlling the deceleration. Not very efficiently, by the way. All right. So time doesn't have anything to do with how much energy something has, and energy is force. So there's nothing that you're going to demonstrate, not a single experimental event, that will demonstrate that force isn't energy and that force isn't exchanged. That's what you have to show me. And you're never going to do that. And just like this comment illustrates, you're never going to counter any of my arguments. So you're never going to show me or even explain how in 350 years you've believed it takes 5 times the force, okay, that 5 times the force equals 25 times the energy or the capacity to do work. And you have no evidence of that. And then you have no evidence that something going 5 times as fast does 25 times the damage or 25 times the work. So however you want to argue that point, you have no counter evidence, and you won't even show the integrity to say, well, yes, physics should have done these experiments. They should have crashed a few cars, should have done a few tug of wars. Yeah, they should have measured this crap. And then they should have explained how levers got it wrong. So all this should have been done. They should explain with a better answer than, the just didn't transfer. So they have no ballistic pendulum experiment where you ever capture more than the momentum. So even though you say it has 2,000 joules, you're only going to collect 2 every single time. And you're just belligerently arguing that the evidence shows something else, and it doesn't show anything else. It shows a complete failure of this kinetic energy crap to show up and do any work. A complete failure. It doesn't work in turbines. Niagara Falls is turning out tons and tons of electricity, and it's not doing it because they put some gear work in, spin the motors, the turbines twice as fast or 3 times as fast, and get 9 times the energy. That doesn't happen. So your theory doesn't work anywhere, and you're just obnoxiously claiming, oh yes it does, and Newton was an idiot, and you're wrong. Okay, you're the idiots. Okay. All right, so if you can apply the same net force over a different amount of time, that means there must be some rate for this. So no, it doesn't. You can completely change the rate at which you decelerate something. You can, jerk your hand. You can do all kinds of different things. You can do a lot of deceleration, a little bit. You can completely change the deceleration or the exchange. And again, it's just an exchange. You can do the exchange over 3 days. You can do the exchange over 3 microseconds. And the argument is if you do it over 3 microseconds, the odds are you're not going to exchange much, and all you're going to do is break whatever the collector is. The collector isn't going to be able to collect the energy over too short a period of time because all the atoms have to collect it, not just one atom. All right, and the rate is actually a thing that is conventionally called force. And the rate is actually a thing that is conventionally called force. So that's just nonsense. There's no rate, okay, in something that contains an amount of momentum. There's no rule at which speed it has to convey its force. Its force doesn't have a rate. It has no rate. When something's going 60 miles an hour, all it has is momentum. It doesn't have a rate of momentum. It doesn't have a rate of anything. So that's just complete gibberish. You just made that shit up. And obviously, all interactions between objects that are moving, hitting each other, it's not about them having a constant force pushing them. So again, cheat the argument. All right. And that rate is actually a thing that is conventionally called force and is measured in newtons. So again, a newton is just a weight. All right, it's nothing more. So this is a big pile of lie and nonsense. A newton is 100 grams. The weight of 100 grams in gravity is a newton. That's it. It's not any more complicated than that. It doesn't have anything to do with mass, meters, seconds bullshit. Okay, it's a weight. That is what the device is measuring. Yes, it's weight in newtons. So it obviously can't weigh at any point more than it weighs. Okay, so if something hits something, it can't hit it with more force than it has, more weight. It can only hit it with less. So any curve of the force has to be recognizing that the peak is the actual weight. So if you were to use a force sensor, I think they call them something else, load sensor or something like that. Anyway, if you were to use one of these electronic devices, I think they're resistors or something like that. They're, pressure sensitive. They're just doing what a spring does without storing the energy. So they don't store any energy, they just measure how much force is being applied, just like a spring measures the force. And all it can measure is the peak. That's it. That's all there is. There's no other measurement. It's measuring the peak. So if you use a force sensor to create a scale, which they do, I mean, most force sensors are in electronic scales now, and all it's doing is saying when is the same pressure hitting each second. So at each second, at each hundredth of a second, it measures, and it gets 7 readings in a row. Well, then it says, yeah, this is how much it weighs, and it's a peak, in a sense. Now you could push on it, or you could move it, or you can drop it, or you can do something to give it more momentum, more angular momentum, and create a tiny little peak. But that would all it be, is a little peak. And you certainly can't make something that weighs 1 pound weigh 100 pounds by tipping it over. Okay, that's not going to happen. All right, that is what the device was measuring. So all it's measuring is weight. Weight is pressure, weight is force. That's all it is, and it's momentum in the end. All it is a mass moving a velocity. That's all you can detect. That's all you can exchange. That's all that ever happens in this universe, and you won't show me an experiment where something other than momentum is exchanged. So show me where the 8-pound ball going 16 miles an hour gives pins something other than exactly the same momentum, total momentum, of a 16-pound ball going 8 miles an hour. Because all it can do, all the bowling ball can do, is give the pins momentum. It can take its momentum and give it to the pins. It cannot give it more momentum, and it won't give them less either. It's an exchange of momentum. All right, and because the change in motion was so drastic and quick, the measured forces were large. So again, it's nonsense. The force detector can't measure more than the force can apply. It can only measure less. So it gradually goes up to its peak. The peak is the actual weight, and then it goes down again. Just like a spring, it goes to a maximum value, and then it's less. So it's just measuring weight. So it's just absolute nonsense to claim that the 32 newtons that the half Newton ball created was a real reading of the pressure created by a small ball traveling a minor speed. Okay, it can't create 32 newtons worth of pressure. Not possible. Even if it was made out of a harder surface, it would have just created that peak, and there wouldn't have been a gradual decline and incline created by the rubberiness of the ball. The rubber ball creates the larger interval of time, and the peak value wouldn't have changed. All right, I have noticed that you have a great difficulties in understanding the difference between variable and the rate of change of that variable. I think you smell like dog shit, because I think that's what you eat, because your brain is shitty, you're an idiot and a moron. There, that's what I think. Okay, I honestly think you're a lying sack of shit, because again, the points that have been made that you have ignored are real and valid, and you just pretend they haven't been made, which makes you a lying piece of scum. Okay. Like velocity and acceleration. So again, acceleration is just a change in your velocity, and it's going to be created by a change in your momentum, in the sense of something has to act on you that has momentum. You can't get momentum any other way than from something that has to give it to you. There's no other way to acquire it, asshole. So it has to be an elemental force, like gravity, or it has to be contact with an object that has in the past had an interaction that's given it momentum, velocity. Let's see, I wonder if it's something neurological. Yeah, fuck you. All right, you're just a religious turd talking absolute fucking shit, so you're no better than a silly fucking Muslim. All right, but you read out of your Bible and you don't understand anything. You never think about anything, and you say, well, that doesn't seem very probable. Why the hell would I want to go to heaven where I rape virgins? What the fuck sense does that goddamn make? Yeah, that's what the good people do. They go to heaven and rape virgins. I mean, fuck you, fuck you, fuck you, fuck you, fuck you. Ugh. So that's the best they can do, is arguments that are completely wrong. Don't have any, there's nothing. So go ahead, Google it, find your statistical facts somewhere where a force sensor isn't absolutely just detecting pressure, and pressure is just weight. And you can't detect more pressure than the object can make as a maximum value. It can't make any more than. It can't have some peak value, okay, that can mean anything, okay, because the peak value, if you measured it with a spring, would be a real value. It would be its real impact weight. So you're just so full of shit. All right, let's see. So, is there, what we got here? 21 minutes. So maybe I will pause. Okay, we'll see what happens if the video survives, and we'll see if we can add something. Maybe I'll talk up. Yeah, maybe I'll go to Hassenfelder's. I mean, her videos are unwatchable lately, and the latest one is just so fucking obnoxious. But they're all fake titles. She says something like, is it fundamentally broken? And then she's basically making a video talking about how it's not fundamentally broken. I mean, it's all clickbait shit. Alright, back. So here's her channel page. And I can't really see them all. I guess I have to make this window smaller. Which is probably better. You don't have to look at them. So the newest one, she's taking on this trans issue again, which is just such a, there's no way, you can't have a rational argument with some people, so there's just no point. I mean, it's clear that ovaries produce a whole bunch of different hormones than testicles do, and it's clear that when these things are the most active is going through your maturation, that is your formative years. And that will decide a lot of things about how you are constructed. And in other great apes, it's really quite dramatic what these hormones do. In orangutans, completely transforms the organism. But it's true in all of, cats even. You can't take a male cat, raise it male, and then cut its nuts off after it's a year old, and all of a sudden it shrinks into a woman cat. Doesn't happen, okay? So it's just all ridiculous to even think that, this makes much sense, to sit there and say, because, he was, to have somebody who has testicles, they go through maturation with testicles, they don't have ovaries, are not getting pumped full of estrogen, blah, 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 blah. They're not going to be a girl, okay? Now, wanting to be one is fine, go ahead. You want to mimic one, fine. But don't pretend that you actually physically are one, okay, genetically, because you're not. I mean, it's just too ridiculous. I mean, the fact that the Olympics allowed that guy to beat up those girls was just so fucking ridiculous. When they didn't even verify, the truth about him. And it's like, what the fuck is this shit? I mean, it's ridiculous. And so the sports is ridiculous anyway. Couldn't give a rat's ass. I think people who want to beat up girls, some guy who wants to beat up girls is a sicko. So the whole thing is just not worth my time. I mean, wants to beat up girls while he wears a dress to do it. I mean, fuck you, too silly. That's, yes, but you can't say anything because these people are all fanatic lunatics. You can say all you want. You can qualify by saying, hey, do what you want. I don't care. Okay, I'm not going to pass a law against it. But yeah, there's a real thing here. Okay, about if you're going to bother having a contest, a physical contest, there's absolutely no point if you're going to argue that trans men are legitimate contenders against, women who didn't have testicles, didn't have the benefit of, come on, just too ridiculous. So this shouldn't even be a subject. Fuck this is just, it just illustrates just how dopey and strange the world has gotten, that this is even an issue. Okay, it really has nothing to do. You want to change your identity, you want to be a woman in lots of other ways, fine, but don't pretend you physically are actually a woman. I mean, it's just wrong and inaccurate. Anyway, so yeah, she's probably on the right side there, just pointing out how Degrassi Tyson is just making silly rationalizations for bullshit science. There is a real such a thing as gender. It's not a non thing. It's a real thing, and people playing games with it, I think it's just such bullshit. Identity, it's it's not like it's not like the other side, they're the people arguing for this trans thing want equality. No, they want everybody to be trans. They want everybody to reject the sexuality they were born with. And then it's all fine with them. So as long as we're all trannies, then it's okay, But they really won't accept a world that has, oh, you mean you're going to just stay what sex you were born? Oh, that's so pathetic. How dare you? Anyway, oh God. So this Musk thing, why Musk is wrong about Mars. So she claims like she's making an anti-Musk video, and it's really just complete support almost. She even plays Richard Dawkins talking about how, well, yeah, Musk is right because we have to save our genetic code. Well, why don't you put it in a bottle somewhere? I mean, this whole argument that the human race can't, put up satellites and live in those. Why do you need to go to Mars? Mars is essentially just going to empty space. There's nothing on Mars that you could use. There isn't anything there. So it's going to be totally useless to you, okay, as an environment. And you might as well just go to the moon. If you have to have a piece of land to walk on, the gravity's almost the same. So just go to the moon if you need some piece of land to sit on. But there's zero advantage. And then it's radioactive as hell, right? So you don't, and you can't change that, she points out, without creating a magnosphere, and you're not going to do that. So why are they even having a conversation about sending human beings to Mars when there's nothing they could do there they couldn't do 3 miles up in space? Or 20 miles up in space. 20 miles, I think, is a geocentric orbit. I think. Anyway, somewhere around there. But anyway, so there's nothing you could do. On a space station. There's no advantage for being on Mars in a space station. There's just nothing. The ground isn't going to help you any. The outside isn't going to help you any. There's nothing the outside can give you that's going to help any. You got no water. You got no nothing. It can't help you. So why the fuck would you go there? And she almost defends the idea that we need billionaires using government money to finance daydreams that are just too fucking silly. Why the fuck is this a thing? It's just it's so bullshit. I mean, this is all government money. Just insane. Just too silly. All right, anyway. And then, so this is some U.S. government hides alien technology. So why is she bothering with this horse shit? This isn't a real person. This isn't anybody who knows anything. It's just some fucking crank. So now they're letting cranks testify before Congress. So that might be a subject. Why are they interviewing lunatics? Why is the Congress interested in what crazy people have to say? Why is that a thing now? Yeah, crazy conspiracy theories. Too silly. Okay, and then did Google quantum computer find evidence for the multiverse? I mean, another too silly. We know these quantum computers will never find anything because all they can make is noise. They can't draw a picture. They can't add 2 plus 2. They can't do anything rational. All they can do is act exactly. If you wanted to mimic a lunatic, they could win the Oscar for mimicking a lunatic. They can't mimic anything ordered and reasonable because the fucking thing doesn't work. It doesn't do anything rational. All it does is create wrong answers. It doesn't make real right answers. So yes, it can give you a random number. If you want a random number, ask a quantum computer. But if you want something sensible and ordered and constructed out of reasoning and logic, never going to happen. Okay, is string theory dead? Now, string theory isn't dead is the title. So what's the fucking point? The icon says one thing, the fucking text says another thing. It's just all her videos are this fucking wishy-washy crap. So she was going to get rid of gobbledygook and she's replaced it with wish and wash. Ugh, fuck. This physics problem is unsolvable. I'm sure it's really not a physics problem. All right. Let's see. Is this the end of academia? I didn't play it, so I don't know what it's about, but I'm assuming it's something silly. Okay. Our sun can make super flares once a century, study finds. So this is news to somebody, but we know that whatever happens once a century, it can't be all that bad, okay? Because human beings have been alive a long time. So the once a century stuff ain't too scary. It's the once every, 1,000 or 10,000 year stuff that we probably got to be a little afraid of. All right, the universe had 2 big bangs. So obviously they've been saying that since the beginning, in the sense that they argue that the universe banged and then somehow it had this insane expansion that was just insane. Like it expanded 1,000,000 times without banging. So that's an old pile of shit. And clearly a pile of shit, okay? Just made up crap. Some 4 people said, one guy suggested and the other guy said, oh yeah, that's cool. And somehow everybody just decided to jump on it because it's too complicated to actually analyze and say, what a pile of crap. All right, AIs predict research results without doing research. Well, I'm pretty doubtful that actually happens. All right, anyway, new physics breakthrough could change everything. No, that's not going to happen. All right. Life began much faster than we thought. Well, that's probably just a big fat fucking lie also. Life in what form? I mean, come on. If they really, even this point, for at least 40 years of my life, I've contemplated this simple argument that we don't even have vocabulary that's anywhere near rational, because we're calling life stuff without a brain and then stuff with a brain, and that's a significant difference. I mean, an insanely significant difference. And so it almost shouldn't be the same category. And then this huge difference between, single cells that are living and monstrous giant organisms that are made of living things. Living things are the slaves that are creating this new manifestation of being alive, where we're transferring electricity and all this other crap is going on that makes the whole living experience, okay, the capacity to experience aliveness, if you want to put it that way. So clearly all that other shit is dead. Okay, it's just interesting little funky chemistry. And it's not until you enslave living cells that you can make this thing that's almost entirely different. I mean, we're made out of living things. We really should be called something different than alive. Because it's like calling a building a brick. No, it's made of bricks. It's not a brick. Or calling a brick a building. I mean, it's not a building, it's a brick. So even vocabulary fails. I mean, and it's all because science has failed you. And you're all too stupid to figure out they've really failed you. They've just given you another religion. They haven't given you science. All right. So now it's at least a more complete video. But yeah, who could watch these fucking idiotic videos? Shit. Ugh, it's just terrible tripe. Clickbait crap. So, till the next time and such and so forth.